No one said it had to look pretty, but the St. Louis Cardinals get it done in game number 1 of the Sunday doubleheader. A 6-5 final score. Good afternoon. I am Ethan Hannaford. He is Grant Salsman, and this is the Cards Hub Postgame Show. We appreciate you all joining us on this lovely Sunday afternoon. Just a reminder that the Cards Hub Postgame Show is sponsored by Hot Shots here on Sports Hub STL and presented by DraftKings. The crown is yours. As mentioned, final score in game number 1 of the doubleheader, 6-5. And Grant, bend but don't break a scenario here for the Cardinals. They at one point had a 4-run lead in this afternoon's ball game. They get by just by the skin of the skin on their backs, but they find a way to get through. And at the end of the day, you know, pretty or not, a win is a win.
Yeah, a win's a win, especially against the Mets. You know, that's kind of been a team of torture so far this season. 0-5 coming in this one. And it felt like, again, that 8th inning, you know, things were unraveling. The Cardinals were going to find another way to lose. But that was big. You know, it was big for JoJo to get that the opportunity there to close out. 6 is a serious number. And when you get to 6, you're going to feel pretty good about winning a lot of games. That was a big win for the Cardinals.
Yeah, I mean, you look at the line score, 6 runs on 11 hits. To be quite frank, there is no reason whatsoever that you should ever lose a game when you're getting that type of offensive production from your lineup. And I tell you what, you know, sometimes the biggest momentum swings are the ones that don't happen. If the Cardinals lose this game, then you know it sends you back to back the 6 games under 500. And it almost flattens the tires, right? I mean, it almost gasses you out as far as, you know, for how deflating a loss like that can be. So St. Louis is able to avoid that, and now they have the opportunity in the nightcap to potentially win a series against a Mets team that has obviously been one of the best in baseball, and all of a sudden you can turn what was has been a very forgettable start to the season against the Mets in the season series. You've only won, as you mentioned, now 1 of 6. But all of a sudden you change the narrative if you're able to win tonight and take the series and start to build on that as you begin the month of May.
Yeah, I agree. You know, you kind of have to go month by month, it feels like, in baseball. They always say it's a marathon, not a sprint. Put April behind you. Get May started on the right track, a win against the Mets, and you're feeling pretty good about yourselves. Hopefully the road woes kind of, you know, you get back to the average a little bit on the road. You just split with the Reds, which I don't think was anything to hang your heads about. This is a big one. You got Palante now, game 2 coming up, but game 1, you kind of, all the trials and tribulations that have happened so far this season, you found a way to win it. You know, it feels like they haven't won a game where Maton hasn't pitched well, where you had to put JoJo in a high leverage situation. It hasn't happened. You know, the one time I can think of when one of your high leverage guys pitched poorly that you won was about a week ago when Helsley blew it against the Brewers and Arenado walked it off. Other than that, if a high leverage reliever, you know, kind of blew up, gave up a run or two, the Cardinals would lose the game. And it didn't happen today. And that showed a lot from the Cardinals to be able to win that game. Showed a lot from JoJo Romero. Very impressed by him to come in that situation and get it done.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, and we'll talk a little bit more about the bullpen and their job. You know, you talk about bend, don't break. It really was the bullpen that bent but didn't break. They were able to hold on to that lead. Let's go ahead and let's take a look at some of the box score totals here. The Cardinals winning this one 6-5, out hitting the Mets 11-10. They had the 1 error in this one. Eric Fetty ends up going 5 innings, allowing 3 earned runs on 6 hits. 5 walks, definitely not the prettiest of outings from Eric Fetty. And, you know, but this is something that I think is commendable for Fetty this year. Is there's been multiple times that we have said that he hasn't had the best stuff, but he has been able to work through and still put up what you would say is what's the word I'm trying to think of here?
Respectable stat line.
Yeah, respectable, like productive enough to like put you in a position to where you can still win. And that's in the Cardinals, you know, he did one. The Cardinals got one of the two things that we said this morning on the Cards Hub 365 that he said that was going to need to happen. One, he was going to be the run support. The Cardinals gave him run support, something they haven't done a great job of this year. He was not a very good job, did not do a very good job of attacking guys in this one, hit the 5 walks, but he's able to work through that. And despite not having his best stuff, he's able to put up average numbers, getting you through 5 innings. And in a game where you are going to have, in a day where you're going to have to lean on the bullpen probably, you're fortunate and you're thankful that, he wasn't getting chased against this Mets lineup that's very sharp, obviously, after a couple of innings.
Yeah, I think you would have loved if he could have got through 6, but with the walk problems, he pitched 101 pitches, I believe. You're kind of grateful he got through 5, and you got the run support. When if you get 6 runs of support in 4 innings, 3 runs, 5 innings isn't that bad. You're leaving with the 3-run lead. If you tell your starter every single day, whenever you walk off the mound for the final time, you're up 3 runs, you're going to take that. And he didn't have his best stuff. It could have been a really big inning, kind of the fall apart we saw against the Brewers. He was able to limit it to just 1 after Soto's big hit. And, from there, the Cardinals were able to claw their way back into the game. And, if Fedde gives up 4 or 5 in that first inning, which for sure could have happened, this game's looking a whole lot different.
Kudos to the Cardinals for jumping on Blade Tidwell early in this one. He ends up in his major league debut throwing 3 2/3 innings, allowing 9 hits, 6 earned runs, 3 walks, and 2 strikeouts. Stefan and I talked this morning on 365, and one of our things that we discussed was how this has traditionally been an area that the Cardinals have struggled in, is against young and new pitching into the league. And now this is back-to-back outings, both against Chase Petty of the Reds and now Blade Tidwell of the Mets. We're able to jump on him relatively early. Obviously, we know that the 4th inning was really where they were able to get to him, which honestly I find more encouraging to me, because what we've seen far too many times, it feels like the last couple of years from the Cardinals, is you're able to scratch across 1 or 2 in the early innings, but you miss out on a lot of opportunities, and it allows for pitchers to get into that groove. And all of a sudden you go through those middle innings and it feels like there's not nearly enough production. The Cardinals, they got the home run from Contreras early in the ball game, I think in the 2nd inning, but they tacked on a run in each of the 2nd and 3rd innings. But for them to be able to get that explosion of an inning in the 4th, take advantage of some mistakes, Brendan Donovan plates 2 and Wilson Contreras plates 2 more, I thought was an encouraging sign from this Cardinals offense that traditionally we haven't seen that style of play, those middle innings, be where we see the majority of the runs.
Well, yeah, to your point, Bryce Elder did not have his stuff a few weeks ago when the Cardinals played the Braves. Cardinals were only able to get a run in the first 2 innings. He didn't have his stuff, worked out of trouble. Then he got in the groove. Cardinals couldn't tack on more. And today, it was situational hitting. 2-out run scored. I mean, that's the biggest part that the Cardinals have struggled with as of late. Bases loaded, 2 outs. You get Contreras just with a nice solid piece, just guides one to right. Then Donovan kind of does the same thing. And all of a sudden it's 6-2. And I think that was really big for the Cardinals to be able to hit with 2 outs. We haven't really seen that lately. Situational hitting has really come back to bite this team as of late in close games. And that was big to be able to tack on.
Majority of the damage was done by the heart of the order today. 3, 4, and 5, Donovan, Arenado, and Contreras combining today for 7 of the 11 hits. Contreras, obviously, with the home run, 5 of the RBIs coming from those 3 as well, and 3 of the runs as well. So your heart of the order got it done today, Grant.
Yeah, heart of the order. That's what we've been talking about with Contreras struggling a little bit, but also I like the bottom of the order's production. Victor Scott getting on base a few times kind of leads to that top. Obviously, Mason Wynn wasn't playing today, but when those guys are normally at the bottom, Scott, Wynn, 8-9, giving Nootbaar, Donovan, Contreras RBI chances, that's when this lineup really gets rolling. And I think that's what we saw today, was Scott able to get on, flip it to the top with some runners on in dangerous situations. And that's why I think we saw the heart of the order really able to thrive today.
The Cardinals headed into the 5th inning with a 6-2 lead. The Mets would tack on 1 in the 6th when Jose Barrero was not able to complete the unassisted double play high throw leads to a run scoring. The run probably may have been safe either way. It would have been a nice play if he turns that double play, but it's 6-3 heading into the bottom of the sixth. And the Mets in the eighth inning made things a little bit scary. Phil Maton enters into the game. First, we got to give kudos to Kyle Leahy for getting through that sixth inning also with runners on first and second. That was big, a big moment in the game as well. So the bullpen, Leahy continues to look good, his seventh hold of the year. And then Phil Maton in the eighth inning, not necessarily the prettiest of outings for him. Walks Luis Torrens. And then McNeil grounds into the force out. So McNeil now at first. And then a base hit from Luis Angel Acuna. Runners on first and second. Tyrone Taylor then singles to load the bases. And then you get to the top of the order, which is this felt like almost deja vu based off of what we saw a couple of weeks ago in Queens. And when Francisco Lindor, he singles up the middle, all of a sudden it's a one-run game. There's runners on first and second at this point. And there's one out, and you have the heart of this Mets order coming up. Jojo Romero enters into the game. He walks Juan Soto, loading up the bases for the National League Player of the Month of April in Pete Alonso. And good at bat, full count. Alonso's fighting off several pitches. And then Jojo Romero throws no doubt what has been his best pitch, the individual best pitch of the season that he's thrown, a slider that just paints the outside corner, and he gets Pete Alonso looking on strikes. What a beautiful pitch. And then the next batter, Brandon Nimmo, pops out to center field, and that ends the inning. The Cardinals still preserving that lead, even though it was much closer at that point than at the beginning of the inning. So it's relieving to see Jojo Romero pick up Phil Maton, who's been so solid to start off the year here. And, for things to go the way that they haven't gone this year, it felt like this was a here we go again scenario. And Jojo Romero ends up, backing his teammates here and getting through that inning. That felt like it was a moment that was bigger than just today to me, Grant. It felt like something that is something that Jojo Romero could build on. They said on the broadcast that he's been working on some things with the fastball, some mechanical things. He's got that velocity back up a little bit like it was last year. I think that this is something, hopefully, that not only Romero, but the bullpen in general could, kind of rally around. And then hopefully we start to see things turn in the right direction as a whole from them.
Yeah, Romero it seemed like he had more control. And I know when I say that, he walked Soto. Don't know how much he was really pitching to Soto there. I think he was pitching a little bit around Juan Soto for obvious reasons.
Really?
Done
with runners on first and second, a lefty-lefty situation?
Pitching carefully, I should say. Not around, pitching carefully. Sure. I think it was a walk is not the worst case scenario to have force outs when you're only up a run. I don't think he was intentionally walking him or pitching around might not have been the right words. But yeah, pitching carefully to Soto, but it seemed like he had more control in that at bat to Alonso. It felt like the perfect time to just throw a slider outside, ball four. Oh no, here we go again. And in his struggles, it was the lack of control too. The walk-off homer to Lindor was a fastball, middle, a perfect pitch for a hitter. And that slider was picture perfect. I see some comments saying that it might not have been a strike. I think it was right on the black, strike three. And then, he bears down against Nimmo, a feisty hitter in his own right, and gets the fly out to get out of the inning. He was fired up. He deserved to be fired up. I think we could see that could be a turning point for Jojo Romero's season. Maybe we see him get a little bit back to the Jojo Romero we saw of last year and really the year before as well.
Yeah, we've seen him in multiple last year we saw him plenty in high leverage situations, being the Cardinals' number one lefty. And, in large part last year, he handled that role really well. And it's been a little bit of a different story for him. So sometimes it just takes being able to get through one high leverage situation like that for you to get the confidence back that you need to remember that you're in that position for a reason. And not that there aren't guys in the clubhouse and on the coaching staff that aren't telling him that every day. I'm sure, there's so much of a mental game that goes into pitching, especially when you're struggling and you have days of going without a performance, so you have to sit on some of those. So for him to be able to get through that situation, you'll most definitely take it if you are a Cardinals fan. So Ryan Helsley closes this one out in the ninth. He allows the leadoff single, but is then able to get through the bottom of the lineup, and the Cardinals walk away with this one in a 6-5 fashion. Good to see Ryan Helsley looking a little bit better today. We had a comment, John, also mentioning that. So you hope that he can, in the same way, continue to build off of this one. I will say I think it's a little bit different with Helsley, because right now it's so interesting how they're using Helsley, because it is really solely in save scenarios that he's just not getting a lot of time to pitch. And when you don't, it's right. It's Chip Carey mentioned it at the end of the game. It's that rest versus rust, right? Yeah. And I think that could be something perhaps that is affecting Helsley early on in the year. I don't know. I trust Ryan Helsley's stuff just as much as anyone in Major League Baseball. So I don't know. I wouldn't say I was concerned going in about his stuff. I think that Ollie Marmol's in a very difficult position with lack of certainty as to where his team's at right now, what the future of Ryan Helsley is with the Cardinals. You take in some of those things into consideration with how they're using him. It's definitely an interesting situation, but today he looked good. Today he gets the save, and he helps the Cardinals get a big win against the Mets.
Yeah, I think that it's tough with Helsley because, as Brendan, who's been on here plenty, talks about, they want Helsley to get a clean inning. They want him to get a clean inning and want to use him in save opportunities. I think you would have seen a lot of managers turn to their closer in that situation that Romero was in. 1 out, 8th inning, heart of the order with 2 of the best players in baseball, and Soto and Alonso coming up. He elected not to, Ollie Marmol, and this time it paid off. I would have loved to see Helsley in it. I just don't think that's what Helsley wants to do or what they want to do with Helsley. We've seen him in the past not do well when it's not his inning, a clean inning. So I think with this rust versus rest situation, it's the rest is going to win out, because even if you are playing him in situations he's not comfortable in, he's probably not going to perform. Like we saw a few years ago, trying to put him in different situations, but safe situations just doesn't work with Ryan Helsley. And that's okay. If he's going to give you a lockdown closer for when you do have save opportunities, you're going to use it. But it does stink a little bit. You can't use them a little bit differently in the 8th in high leverage situations.
Yeah, I mean, there's no doubt that the Cardinals have figured out what has worked for Ryan Helsley, and what has worked for him is in the 9th inning or in save scenarios. And usually 1 inning of work. I think last year it was twice. It's between 2 and 4 times, I can't remember, that they used him in multi-inning fashion. I want to say it was twice last year. And I think that's I have to imagine that as if it ain't broke, don't fix it kind of situation. And you know what? If that's what works, then that's what works, because they clearly have a product in Ryan Helsley that has been working here the last couple of seasons for them. We had a comment earlier when we were getting going here that from Mr. Intensity that said, nice to waste both Maton and Helsley when you have to play game 2. I'm curious of your thoughts to this, because bullpen management in a doubleheader is so much different than it is in a single when you have only 1 game to play. But I want to hear your thoughts on this, and then I'll follow up with mine as to the management from Ollie Marmol today on using his main guys, Leahy, Maton, and Romero and Helsley for game 1.
I think you used, when you have a chance to close the game out, I mean, it was a save situation for it would have been a safe situation for Helsley either way. Even if Maton pitched a clean 7th and no runs were given up, it was a 3-run game. I mean, Helsley would have been pitching. I think you have to use the best guys when you have a chance to win the game. Because who's to say that, okay, so let's say you don't pitch Helsley or Maton and the Cardinals lose this game, and then maybe they win 10-0 in game 2, or they lose 10-0 in game 2, and you wouldn't have needed high leverage guys anyway. So I think when you're in the situation to win game 1, you use the guys to win game 1, and you worry about game 2 later. I think you put all your pieces on deck for game 1 when you have a chance to win it, and maybe they'll come out and they'll win 6-0 later tonight, and then you can use McGreevy. You don't have to use any high leverage guys anyway.
Mr. Intensity, I greatly appreciate you being in here, listening, joining, and sharing your thoughts. But this is such a silly comment because of everything that you just said, Grant. This is a scenario where you cannot be thinking of how to use your guys in game 2. When you have an opportunity to win games, you do anything that you can to win the game. And now I'll ask the listeners, right? Look, exactly what you just said. If you don't use Leahy or Maton or your best guys, and one, either you lose that game, or two, there's not an opportunity where you really need to use them in game 2, then you just completely wasted an opportunity to win a game. So I completely back Ollie Marmol's decision to use his best guys in this situation. Would it have been ideal if they didn't have to use Helsley in the 9th, if they could have held on and preserved that lead or maybe tacked on a run? Yes, but as you mentioned, the third run was charged to the starting pitcher. So that's not even that third run wasn't even really on the bullpen. Kyle Leahy did a good job of damage control in that inning. So even if the score is 6-3, even if that the score is 6-3 rather than 6-5 heading into the 9th, like you said, you're using Ryan Helsley either way. So I don't see any issues whatsoever with the bullpen management. One thing I think that it almost for sure guarantees in game 2, right, is that we're probably going to see Michael McGreevy throw. He is the 27th man on this roster for the doubleheader, and the chat's been discussing him a little bit. Hey, I'm excited to see Michael McGreevy throw. This is a guy that obviously had a stellar spring training, and I would say at least a majority of the Cardinals fans wanted to see him in the rotation to start off the year. He hasn't been. He's been in Memphis, but St. Louis fans likely to get a chance to see Michael McGreevy to hopefully preserve on the back end tonight. Hopefully Andre Palante is able to put in a solid 6 innings of work tonight. And but I look forward hopefully to the opportunity to see the pitching prospect that feels like he's the closest to being a part of the major league rotation.
Yeah, I'm curious with the McGreevy. Let's say Palante does pitch 6 and the Cardinals gives up 2 runs. Cardinals are winning 3-2, whatever. I'm curious what the bullpen looks like. Do you pitch McGreevy 7-8 and then bring in someone to close it out? Do you give McGreevy an inning? Do you not give McGreevy any? Because obviously Palante comes in and struggles, only goes 4, maybe 5. They'll get McGreevy 6 and 7. But if you're winning with the lead, do you try to put McGreevy in for an inning? Maybe give him the 7th and 8th? Like, that's what I will be really interested in is if you don't need to use them, where do you – like, if it's not the obvious middle reliever give you 2-3 innings, where is the spot for McGreevy? Because I don't know if you don't put McGreevy in the 7th. Let's say Palante goes 6. I don't know who pitches 7, 8, 9. I don't know who you feel confident in to pitch those 3 innings. Maybe Swanson comes in, but I don't know how confident you are with him right now. Like, you use a lot of guys. It wouldn't shock me if Leahy has another inning in him. Like, that would be crazy, but he doesn't have the nickname every day for nothing. So I don't know. I don't know where the bullpen goes after 6 today, what they do. Maybe McGreevy pitches all 3. I have no idea.
You've been hanging out with Brendan Schaefer too much.
Yes, I have too much.
Well, Leahy threw 25 pitches in game 1 today, so there's no way they're going to throw him again. Yeah. Maton threw 21, Romero threw 18, so and Helsley threw 14. I would be shocked if any of those guys are available for game 2 today. So that's why it would shock me if they don't end up using Michael McGreevy today. Yeah. The guys that I imagine will be available are John King, Roddery Munoz, and Chris Roycroft. Those are your 3 guys that you have available for the second game of the as well as Michael McGreevy. So I would be surprised if they don't end up using McGreevy. This is why you bring up the 27th man. You bring him up for this very reason. So I imagine we're probably going to go ahead and get to see him. It would surprise me if they don't. This is the Cards Hub Postgame Show. The Cardinals defeating the New York Mets in game number 1 of this Sunday doubleheader by a final score of 6-5. And just a quick reminder for you that the Cards Hub Postgame Show is sponsored by Hot Shots here on Sports Hub STL and is presented by DraftKings. The crown is yours. Download the DraftKings Pick 6 app now and use code STL Sports. That's code STL Sports for new customers to play. Only $5. Only $5, guys. Get $50 in Pick 6 credits. Better payouts, bigger wins, only with Pick 6 from DraftKings. The crown is yours.
Gambling problem? Call 1-800-GAMBLER. Help is available for problem gambling. Call 888-789-7777 or visit ccpg.org in Connecticut. Must be 18 and over. Age and eligibility restrictions vary by jurisdiction. Pick 6 not available everywhere, including New York and Ontario. Void where prohibited. One per new customer. Bonus awarded as non-withdrawable Pick 6 credits that expire in 14 days. Limited time offer. See terms at pick6.draftkings.com/promos.
Ethan Hannaford and Grant Salsman on the Cards Hub Postgame Show after a 6-5 victory in game number 1 from your Redbirds. The Cardinals went ahead and gave a couple of guys the first game off in the doubleheader, including Mason Wynn, Jordan Walker, both of them not in there, but you can expect both of them to be in the lineup for game number 2, and I would be shocked if Mason Wynn is not batting in the 2 spot as he continues to hit well, Grant. They talked about Jordan Walker, as I pull up the quote here that John Denton released earlier, talking about the work that they are doing with him right now. A lot of just trying to work on the discipline on the off-speed pitches. We know that very early in the year, he had been looking better, right? A little bit more optimistic on laying off of some of those off-speed pitches, that breaking pitches that were outside of the zone. We've seen him kind of revert to old habits here in the last several weeks, and he has they've been working on some things with him. Here's the quote from Ollie Marmol. They said that Walker has been using his off days to work on a breaking ball standpoint and a decision-making standpoint. He says, I am happy with how that's going. Now results, hopefully those come. He's in a good spot. He's not defeated. He feels encouraged and good about the work. Now it's just a matter of the growing pains of doing it at the big league level, because it is hard, but I do feel he has the overall toughness to get through it. And I think that's a good quote from Ollie Marmol, and we've heard him, I think it was last week on KMOX's The Gas House Gang that he joins weekly, that he talked about the difference between how right, when the struggling is becoming unproductive for young guys, and like Jordan Walker, like Nolan Gorman, and he talked about you can see it in the toughness in the mental battle that those guys go through. He's talked about how these guys are still very invested, still are working on things, and are still very checked in. There's times though when you feel like you're losing them mentally, and you feel like they're checked out and they're struggling so much that the level of discouragement is just so high. That is when you start to get some issues. He said that has not been the case for them. That's why he's still very confident in them being able to figure this out at the big league level.
Yeah, I think with Walker, it's never been an issue of if the talent's there or not. If he has it, it's really been an approach issue. And we saw kind of the self-confidence lacking when he got sent down last year, and kind of that whole dramatic thing that occurred between the fan base and Walker. And it kind of felt weird. I think this year both sides are going in with a better approach. I think Walker's going with the better approach. And now it's time that he's working through it. I think soon we're going to see it kind of be implemented finally. See him kind of take that jump. And it kind of needs to be this year for Jordan too, for the Cardinals really to feel some confidence in him.
And I stand corrected. It's actually technically Roddery Munoz who is the 27th man for today's doubleheader, not Michael McGreevy, but who knows how we could see Ollie Marmol use that bullpen for the second game of the doubleheader. We had Samuel in the chat asking for an Ivan Herrera update, and this actually came out right after we wrapped up Cards Hub 365 this morning. John Denton tweeting 5 hours ago prior to game 1 that Ivan Herrera experienced some knee soreness after catching on Friday, and there is still some shakiness while running the bases, according to manager Ollie Marmol. The team isn't overly worried, but it could delay his return to STL by a day or two. So there is your Ivan Herrera update. I know originally they had talked about potentially him being back up this weekend. That is obviously not going to be the case, but still very close to returning to this major league lineup. And once he does, that'll be a huge right-handed bat for the Cardinals to be getting back, Grant.
Yeah, once, without Wynn and Herrera, the lineup looked a little dead there for a little bit, a little like it was just missing a piece. And with Wynn back up, it slowly progressed, but I really think this offense could look back, maybe not what it was the first week of the season, but with Herrera back, I really think it could get back to doing some big damage and being a lot more consistent, kind of having that guy back in the middle. With Herrera and Wynn back, you'll feel pretty confident 6-7 guys a day in the lineup, and that's a pretty good place to be in. I really think the Cardinals can get back to some of the offensive output they had early in the season with him back.
The lineups are out for game number 2, so we'll go ahead and drop those for you before we wrap up today's post-game show. Andre Pallante and Tyler McGill facing off. Pallante 2-2 with a 4.13 ERA. McGill 3-2 with a 1.74 ERA, so he has been sharp to start off the year. The Mets will have this lineup: Lindor at short, Soto DHing in game number 2 will be followed by Alonso, who's at first, Nimmo batting cleanup in left field, Vientos is at third, Marte is in right, Alvarez is behind the plate catching, Acuna is at second, and Tyrone Taylor is in center field. For the Cardinals, this is what their lineup will look like. Lars Nootbaar leading off once again. He's in left field. Mason Wynn back in the lineup. He's at shortstop today. Brendan Donovan batting third and is at second base. Nolan Arenado at the hot corner and batting cleanup. Wilson Contreras will be the DH, so he is batting fifth. Alec Burleson will play first base and bat sixth. Joel Pozo will bat seventh and catch for St. Louis. And then Jordan Walker in the 8th spot playing in right field. And in the 9th spot, it'll be Victor Scott II in center field. Grant, before we wrap, your thoughts on the lineup for game 2?
Yeah, I like it. I like seeing Wynn in second. Glad Arenado's back out there for another game. No surprise, really. Pozo getting the start at catcher today. I think it's basically the lineup you were expecting. Happy to see Walker back out there as well. And will be interesting against a really good pitcher today. 1.74 ERA out of Mule. If maybe the Cardinals can get to him finally. It's going to need to be a low-scoring win, most likely. Don't see him giving a lot, but maybe you can get 1 or 2 off him and see Pallante really have another good outing. Would be, I think, big after he got a little bit roughed up last time.
Yeah, the last couple haven't necessarily been his best quality, so let's see if we can get him back to what we've seen at times at Busch Stadium from him in 2025, and let's see if the Cardinals can go ahead and feel like what would be stealing a series from the New York Mets, one of the best teams in the National League and all of Major League Baseball. It's been fun covering this one and recapping the Cards Game 1 win, a 6-5 final. He is Grant Salsman. I am Ethan Hannaford. Be sure to stay tuned in here. We'll have post-game coverage of Game 2 of the doubleheader, and then we will also have post-game coverage of Game 7 of the Blues and Jets, the first round of the Stanley Cup playoffs. So looking forward to both of those and having you all involved in both of those. I know that for those that are asking, Stephen Carey will be on the second game of the doubleheaders post-game. I'm not sure who will be with him, but you always got to tune in when there's a Carey involved. We appreciate you all tuning in for this one, and we will see you following Game 2. This has been the Cards Hub Postgame Show on Sports Hub STL.